Let us be the change we wish to see come. Let us worship together. Just have a few announcements. Our mission statement, of course, is love plus connection equals transformation. And so I invite you all to these activities that we have going on here so that we can connect and transform the world. This Wednesday, here in the sanctuary at 6:30 p.m., we will have a group. Anybody can come. You do not have to be artistic or creative. The packet is in the newsletter, and you can look through that and find some different activities to engage in before you come, or not. If you're just interested and you don't know what the heck it is, just come anyway. It'll be fun. After service today, after we have snacks and conversation and whatnot, I'm going to come back in the sanctuary and just do a little autumn equinox celebration and ritual, and so you're all invited to that. Next week, we will be honoring Universalism Day, and I'll be talking about some Universalist history, and not just general American Universalist history, but a little bit of the Universalist history that happened here in Lakeland that not a lot of people know about, and it's lots of fun, I think, but I'm kind of a history geek. And also, after the service, next Sunday, we'll begin our starting point class, which is for our newcomers. And so you are welcome to join us in that. It's where we learn about Unitarian Universalism, we learn about the church, we learn about each other. And it's not just for newcomers, like old-timers, you're welcome to come too, to relearn, to learn new things, and to get to know other people. Social justice team is, we're getting back together. I met with Sherry, who is our new unofficial. She'll be official when she becomes a member, but right now she's the unofficial chair of the Social Justice Committee. And so I'm so glad to have her with us, and we had lunch and talked about all the things that we want to do. So we'll be working on the UUA's Climate Justice Revival Program. And also, the Social Justice Committee doesn't have a budget. So in the month of October, we're going to be taking up our plate collections so that we can enhance the Social Justice Committee with some funds so that we can do some of these things that we want to do. And one more thing, we made a survey, and it's sitting on that stand back there, and we'll make sure to hand it out after the service. It's a survey just to find out if you are interested in 10 a.m. programs, and if you are, what you might come to at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning. So please fill that out for us. And I think I made it. All right. Please check the back of your order of service and our newsletter, which is published on Mondays, for more information. Thank you. So let us create our sacred space by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And as we light it, let us center our shared value of generosity. Generosity. It states, we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Dorothy, would you please light our chalice? Thank you. So we're going to sing a different version of Spirit of Life today, an upbeat version, yes? All right, it's an upbeat kind of day, so please join us in singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life, and you may get up, dance, sign.
Thank you.
musicians a little leeway. I mean, they play this every week, right? So we're letting them play around a little. Okay, I would like to invite the children up for a story. The young and the young at heart. Sorry about that. Oh, we're so glad to have Petra back. Woo! Hello, hello, hello. Oh, how's it going? Okay, I got a thumbs up. Oh, okay. All right. You guys? Yeah? All right. That's okay. It's Sunday morning. It'll be all right. I'm going to read you a book. It's called Desmond Gets Free. It was written by Matt Meyer, who actually did a service with us once. He's a drummer. It was pretty fun. And he wrote this book, and it's illustrated by Kim Pham. Let's see. Desmond the mouse lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the land. Every morning, Desmond woke with the sunrise and would spend the day playing in the meadow. And every evening, Desmond would go to sleep in the middle of that meadow under the beautiful starry sky. One night, though, Desmond awoke when it was still dark out. He tried to roll over to a more comfortable spot, but something wasn't right. Desmond realized that his tail was stuck right to the ground and beginning to throb with pain. He felt behind him, and there was a huge boulder that seemed to have fallen in the middle of the meadow just on his tail. What are the odds? Desmond pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail. He pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail, and he pushed and tugged and pushed and tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up, he saw a giraffe nearby in the grass. Oh, the giraffe's going to help him, right? Yeah, okay. Good news, he thought. Oh, giraffe, Desmond cried. Could you please push the boulder a few inches in the other direction so I could go free? The giraffe looked at Desmond and laughed the way giraffes do. How does a giraffe laugh? Anybody? Thank you, Petra, for that impression. Silly mouse, said the giraffe. That's no boulder. That's an elephant that's fallen asleep in the middle of the meadow just on your tail. Well, if you could just wake the elephant and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction, I could go free. Well, replied the giraffe, you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' businesses. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like this. He's just going to let Desmond just lay there under the elephant? Desmond quietly replied, well, I do not appreciate your neutrality. The giraffe wandered off, and Desmond tried calling out to the elephant to wake him up. But those giant ears were just too far away on the other side of that elephant's body. So again, Desmond pushed on the elephant and tugged on his tail. He pushed and he tugged and he pushed and he tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up again, a gazelle wandered by. Surely the gazelle's going to help. No, okay. Oh, gazelle, he cried. Oh, gazelle, it seems that an elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I'm stuck and it hurts. I wonder if you could gently wake him and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I might go free. Well, said the gazelle, I see your problem there, but you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like these. Desmond replied, almost to himself this time, I do not appreciate your neutrality. Desmond tried again to call out to the elephant. He tried again to push the giant animal away. He tried again and again to tug his little tail free, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up for the last time, he saw another mouse wandering through the meadow. "My name is Nelson." "Nelson, the giant elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you might run over and call out into his giant ears and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I could go free?" Desmond asked. "Of course," said Nelson. Nelson ran all the way to the other end of that giant elephant body, and he called up to those giant elephant ears at the top of that giant elephant head, but the elephant didn't budge. The elephant heard Nelson's small voice far away, but he felt too comfortable to move. Nelson ran back to Desmond, a little out of breath, and said, "I have an idea. Don't move." And he ran off. "I won't," muttered Desmond. A little while later, though, Nelson emerged through the tall grass, and he wasn't alone. Nelson had found 3 other mouse friends to help him, and each one of them had also brought another 3 friends. The whole group of them ran over to the giant head of that giant elephant. One mouse scrambled up onto the shoulders of another, and another mouse scrambled up on her shoulders. And then one after another, they climbed up until the whole group of them had formed a long mouse ladder right up the side of that elephant. At last, Nelson climbed up the shoulders of his mouse friends, one on top of the other, until he was way up on that giant elephant head, standing next to that giant elephant ear. "Excuse me," he called out right into that ear. "It seems you've fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you could just roll over a few inches in the other direction so he might go free." The giant elephant made a giant, low groan. "Grumph. I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away." So Nelson asked more of his mouse friends to climb up. One by one, they helped each other up the side of the elephant. One by one, they called out into that giant elephant ear on the top of that giant elephant head. Again, the giant elephant made a giant, low groan. "Okay, thank you. I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away." Then Nelson had an idea. He whispered to the mice, and then all at once, they yelled out together, "Excuse us! It seems you've fallen asleep on our friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. Roll over a few inches in the other direction so he can go free." This time, all those voices together, right next to the elephant's ear, were too loud to ignore. "I was comfortable where I was, but I'll move over if you just agree to stop making such a racket," the elephant cried out. And then the elephant rolled over just a few inches in the other direction. Nelson and the other mice helped each other climb back down, and Desmond was finally free. Yay! Desmond and Nelson and all their mouse friends spent the rest of that beautiful day playing in the middle of that beautiful meadow. The end. Oh, do you know who this is? It's Archbishop Desmond Tutu. "If you are neutral in situations of injustice," he said, "you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality." So do you know what that means exactly? No? What if somebody is hurting and they need some help? Should you just ignore them? Be like, "I don't want to make waves"? No, what should you do? You should help them. That's right, because you don't want them to stay hurting, do you? Right. I think that the love, the center of our hearts, calls to us. We're like those little mice, yeah? And when we do it together, we have even more power, don't we? Yeah. A lot of us, even though we feel like little mice, we can still get the elephant to move. Okay, cool. That's the end of our story. You are welcome. We're going to sing? We're going to sing them out? Yay! concerns, and sorrows, embodies the belief that there is power in being together and in holding one another in the significant, the precious, the hard, and the joyful moments of our lives. In our Joys and Sorrows book, you are able to write any significant joy or sorrow occurring in your life that you would like for the congregation to know. It sits on the table at the entrance of the sanctuary before the service, and I read from it before we take the time to participate in our weekly ritual. Jen says, while it has been a crazy, chaotic week and a half, and I am exhausted, I would not have made it through it all without y'all. From Denise, my mother passed 3 years ago from Alzheimer's, but our family is still in a state of imbalance and adjusting. Hearts are with you. From Linda, I'm grateful to be alive and healthy on my birthday. Happy birthday, Linda. And from Sherry, Linda's daughter, I'm grateful it's my mom's birthday and I can celebrate her today. It's also my cat's birthday. Her cat's name is Priscilla Pusley. And she's 9 years old. Happy birthday, Priscilla Pusley. And Dustin says that he is grateful to have his children safe with him. Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing with us. So you are invited now to come forward and place a colored stone representing your joys, concerns, and sorrows into the water. Each stone that we drop into the water represents a different thing that you may need in the midst of this moment. You may take whichever stone or stones feels right to you, drop it in the water, connect to others, and feel the power of being together in this community. You are welcome to come up. Dorothy, could you please put a stone in for Judy, who is on Zoom? Thank you. Yes, thank you. Here we gather, tucked back in this friendly neighborhood between the beautiful tall pines. We are a community of people who have arrived from many different paths, yet we seek a common goal: to bring more love to a hurting but beautiful world. Our ushers will now pass the plate so that we may live into our shared values with love at the center. Let us just take a moment to center ourselves and contemplate that which we are exploring this month: the practice of invitation. To practice invitation is to live with love at our center, inviting in all that we already love, all that we endeavor to love, and sometimes all that is difficult to love. To be a truly inviting people means going beyond simply greeting. It means also to embrace, to empathize with, to listen without judgment, to support, to continue to hold love at the center no matter how hard it is. That is invitation. This month we are exploring many questions about the practice of invitation, for as Poet Laureate Tracy K. Smith writes, "A question is a pursuit, an invitation to envision and explore a series of possibilities, to struggle and empathize and doubt and believe." Reflect on these questions. What are the questions that have arisen for you this month as we've explored the practice of invitation? Has anything shifted for you as you think about the ways in which you are being inviting? Have you had any aha moments? Have you gained new insights or perspectives? In Unitarian Universalism, we say that revelation is continuous because we are always open to new ways of being. How have you engaged your spirit this month so that your actions align with a greater hope, a greater love, and a greater purpose? Has the practice of invitation widened your embrace so that you may leave a legacy of love for this world, one in which we are all free? Please join me in singing a hymn entitled "These Hands, This Heart."
These arms will be welcoming to one.
So that's a good one that we're just learning, so they'll keep showing up. The stories of our past guide us into the future. They give us a foundation for our collective identity that helps us negotiate how we can live hopefully into our future. Stories help us reflect on how just one person can have an impact. Today, the one person from our UUCL past that we are honoring and lifting up is Cleo E. Thomas, or as they called her, Tommy. Tommy signed the membership book on March 29th, 1959, at 71 years of age. And this Lakeland congregation was never the same again. At the time, the group was called the Lake Region Unitarian Fellowship. They were a small group of self-organized Unitarians. That was pretty trendy back then. And at least one Universalist, who I'll talk about next week. And they were building a church without a minister. That's pretty much what it meant to be a fellowship. Tommy was immediately hired as the executive secretary for the fellowship. But the work that Tommy did went way beyond the job description of a very part-time executive secretary. Tommy had a calling to build community inside and outside of the church walls. Tommy exemplified the practice of invitation. One of the first tasks that Tommy had to do when she was hired was to find a new place for the fellowship to meet. They had been meeting at Florida Southern College since 1956, but the new president of the college asked them to leave in 1959. So Tommy set out and searched the town for an affordable place to meet. She found this, Troy Avenue property, tucked away between the tall pines. And a good thing, too, because the notes in the archives indicate that the people of the fellowship were losing hope. Without Tommy's vision and efforts, it is uncertain whether or not the fellowship would have survived. But finding a new home renewed their spirits, and the people of the fellowship put in the physical work required to fix up the buildings and make it suitable for a small religious group. The members also expressed appreciation for Tommy and the work that she did. In a correspondence that Tommy had with the Van Buskirks in 1960, Mr. Van Buskirk wrote to Tommy that if the fellowship stays together, it's because of you. Tommy found the new property, but more importantly, she gathered people together and inspired them to take action. Throughout her years here, Tommy performed not only the mundane office work she was hired to do, but she scheduled Sunday speakers, organized the Sunday school program when no one else was available, wrote the newsletter, stayed up to date with what the National Association was doing, and she attended regional events that connected her with other UU churches in Florida. She wrote that she was always searching for new ideas, new ways of doing the regular things, which will help our fellowship to grow and be more meaningful to our members and friends. But one of the most significant positions that Tommy held was as a social responsibilities chair. She volunteered for the local chapter of the Human Relations Council of Florida, encouraging local interracial and intercultural relationships. Tommy was also attentive to the work of the UUA's Black Affairs Council, which was experiencing pushback and conflict from the larger association. However, Tommy ensured that our fellowship donated $250 to the UUA in both 1968 and 1969, specifically indicating that it was a contribution for the Black Affairs Council. In her September 1968 program committee report, and keep in mind that by this time, Tommy was almost 80 years old, she wrote that January is Brotherhood Month in the UUA calendar. This will be our theme, presenting 4 speakers from other faiths, other races. In the late 1960s, when it was controversial for a white congregation to invite Black people to attend their church, indeed many UU fellowships were kicked out of their buildings and neighborhoods because of it, Tommy was practicing invitation, and she did not believe in leaving anyone out. "My goal is to fill the chapel to standing room only," she wrote, "and I'll need the help of each of you." Tommy was hopeful, enthusiastic, determined, and she had an unstoppable vision. And amazingly, she apparently had enough energy at 80 years old to follow through on the many of the problem-solving ideas she and others had. Her approach was one of humility and collaboration. She gathered the opinions and ideas of others by inviting them in. She put effort into cultivating relationships of trust. Indeed, Tommy centered relationships, recognizing that building relationships with newcomers, people of other faiths and races, and other community organizations was central to a thriving church. And so in 1972, the congregation created the Tommy Award. This award was given to a person, often someone in the greater Lakeland community, in recognition of their social justice work. It was named after Tommy because the congregation recognized how important her work was to the congregation and to the building of community. The first Tommy Award was given to Bob Harris of the Neighborhood Service Center. For over 40 years, the award was given out yearly by the congregation, and the list of organizations to receive it includes Polk County Spouse Abuse, Planned Parenthood, Lakeland SPCA, Polk AIDS Support Services, and Polk County Citizens for Peace and Justice, just to name a few. We got a little bit sidetracked with COVID, and it's been a couple years at least since we have given out the award. But I think that we can continue to be shaped by Tommy's practice of invitation. We can ensure that her legacy becomes an important part of our storytelling and of our collective memory. One of the last notes Tommy wrote for the church was in 1975, and she left us with a beautiful wondering about the future. She pondered, with a sizable savings account, some from special gifts, earmarked for building a new church and a growing of the younger generation, what does the future hold? Will we build that dreamed of church close to the tall pines? Only the future can write this chapter. We are the future, of course. Tommy passed away in July of 1985 at the age of 97. Tommy's practice of invitation endures right here, right now, with us. We continue to center ourselves in love and to build community. And with Tommy as our guide, we can continue to be generous and inviting, writing the story of this little Unitarian Universalist church nestled in the tall pines here on Troy Avenue. So today we add the page which tells the story of the giving of the 2024 Tommy Award. And we are giving it today to a very special friend and community partner of ours. Now, some of you are new, so I suppose you might need an introduction. But today, we are giving the award to Jason DeShazo, or Mama Ashley Rose, of the Rose Dynasty, because we finally have an LGBTQ center in Polk County because of the work that Jason has done. There is opening. So, yeah. And now you get to speak.
I am not lost for words very often. Wow, I knew a little bit about Tommy. Wow. I only hope that I could live longer than that and do that. Wow, so thank you everyone. Just a little story, a little sharing about where we have come from and where we are today. I think you should understand a little bit backstory of how Tommy's vision was actually really in line with what was instilled in me as a child, and I'm able to fulfill that here in Polk County. I grew up in a very small town called Okeechobee, which is south of here. I grew up in a broken home, but there was still love, and there was a religious foundation that set me on a journey and taught me to love people. At a very young age, in the early 80s, I knew I was gay. It was very obvious I was gay. And I was the height of the AIDS movement, and my sexuality became a center of conversation, and that center of conversation was fear. And we know, if you know, right? And then religious trauma began to take place, which was out of love and trying to shape me, and fear that was going on in the time. but I had a journey that a family and people around me that taught me amazing things. And the fact of receiving probably one of my first awards now, receiving this from someone who left a legacy, it really ties in with my life of really wanting us as humans to remember our past, and not remember our past as the sorrow and that, but those that left a legacy of love. And you read that in the poem. And I just wrote an article that's coming out soon in the Watermark magazine. It's called Legacy of Love. And I talked about 4 people in my life who were very important that changed my life. And I'm going to share briefly about them. And the first one is my father. My father was an addict. My father had a lot of trauma in his life from religion, from spiritual leaders, from pastors. And my dad had his mind made up that if he was going to what he would consider a hell, he was going in a handbasket. And I remember my father's addictions at a young age and watching. But I remember a time when my parents split, and I didn't really know then what I know now. But my dad was done. My dad, at that point, made up his mind, and this is his story to share, and I know he'll appreciate me sharing this, but he had made up his mind that he was going to end his life and end mine and my mother's if no one could. If he couldn't have them, no one else could. And it was all from this trauma that he received as a child. And fast forward, he had an experience where he heard a message on a radio to go to this little church in an orange grove in Fort Pierce, Florida. And he had a choice at that moment. Was he going to go or wasn't he? And when he went, my father had an experience that changed his and my life. My father prayed a prayer, he knelt at an altar, and however you may want to see it and experience it, you can. But when he got up, that man never touched drugs, he never touched alcohol, he never did any of that again. And I watched at 8 years old my father's life transform. And I knew that there was something somewhere. There was love, there was a deity, there was someone that changed this man's life. And I watched my dad give everything. I started food pantries with him, just like we did here at one point. I watched him feed the homeless and take care of those in need, and I loved it. I heard stories of his father giving the shirt off his back as he would do his 5 o'clock morning walk picking up cans in Tampa. I saw these men in my life give and love. I met a woman many years later after struggling and going through conversion therapy and figuring myself out, and that's a whole nother story. This woman named Ruth Cooper, and Ruth Cooper is probably one of my dearest friends. We were in ministry together for a long time, and at that point, the church that I had ministered with her at kicked me out, asked me to leave, and pretty much didn't want me around and told her to have nothing to do with me. But she took a chance at her little house out in Loxahatchee, Florida, with more animals than most farms have. And she took a chance and took me in. And her family at 18, 19 years old took me in and loved me. And I watched this woman's love abound. And I found out later that I wasn't the only one that was disenfranchised and unwanted that she took in. Fast forward, this amazing human lost a lot of ministry, a lot of friends for standing up for me, for standing up for the LGBTQ plus community. And I watch her today and realize that she left a legacy of love, not for me, but for so many other people. I also want to tell you a story about this woman, a lesbian in the turn of the centuries in Detroit, Michigan. And many people don't know about her. Her name was Ruth C. Ellis. Has anybody heard of her? Ruth C. Ellis was a black woman, lesbian, in Detroit, Michigan, who owned her own printing company, who was out and had a lesbian, her partner, and they had a home in Detroit in the 20s that accepted and pulled in LGBTQ plus youth, right? Gay and lesbian youth in the 20s and 30s. Openly black lesbian in Detroit, in the U.S. It blows my mind that here this woman did, and she did so much advocacy, a lot like what I heard Tommy did, just loving people for who they were. You know, people, kids and youth would come and sleep on their couch in their house and have a safe space in that time. And it's a story that we've not heard about, but this human left a legacy of love, and there's actually a foundation in Detroit still that has carried on her name. I spent a lot of my life in ministry. I preached, I was on television, I sang, I led worship in very mainstream atmospheres. Fast forward, I had the opportunity to work in many LGBT churches across the country, in California and Atlanta, and led worship there and helped plant churches and feed people and do all that stuff that I had an opportunity to do. And life brought me back to Polk County. My first boyfriend and I spent a lot of time here. He was from Fort Meade, and that was in the late 90s, and it was dangerous for queer people in this town then. So about 2010, I think it was, my dates are crazy. I found a little group of people online that were meeting at the UUCL here on a Sunday night. And I came, and I had this stirring back in my life of, I remember being this young Pentecostal boy and then coming out and being this young gay Pentecostal boy. And oh my gosh, there's a group of people meeting at back then was like a taboo place of a Unitarian Universalist congregation. What? Pentecostals meeting as we would have said it back then, a cult church. Needless to say, I did not realize that I was joining another cult church, and that's another story. But I joke about it, I laugh at it because it was so true. But like in my life, when I needed it, we were back in Polk County. I'm like, dear God, why am I back here? And I played on this very piano many nights on a Sunday. And then we moved on and had our own church, and life took us places. And I knew that there was something about Polk County that needed something. I moved to West Palm. Life brought us back to Polk County again. Third time apparently was the charm. And I remember coming back here being full-blown drag in Munn Park. I think it was probably the second or third Polk Pride where they had started it back up. I decided to get a booth, and I would print some t-shirts that had our motto on it, and I would be in drag, and my husband and I, and me in full drag, set up a tent, and we got to meet people in Polk County. And they got to meet Mama. And we had families come up and say, will you do this? Will you do this? Will you do a story time? And I began to see a need in this community. I never in my mind, in my right mind at all, would have thought that I would be opening the first LGBT center here. We've had a crazy journey. We have. Years later, we started the first drag story time here. Do you know I went almost 7 years with no issues, no problems? Most of our support, we were running 50 to 70 people at our drag story times every month. We were having our teen nights. We're meeting once a month. We expanded into Gainesville doing teen nights and just seeing so much amazing things happen. And then COVID hit. We moved everything online. And it was like, again, our lives shifted. And December will be 2 or 3 years ago. The timeline is so drawn out. 2 years ago. December will be 2 years ago. We were holding our first annual Celebration of the Arts event over at Artifact. And I remember someone coming in saying, there are Nazis outside and the police department want to speak to you. It was scary. It was scary. I had a choice, right? As we all did. We have a choice. What am I going to do? I wanted to just crawl in a hole and cry and get everybody out safe and just go away. But when I asked our team, when I asked the people that were in there, what do you want to do? And everyone's like, oh no, we're not going anywhere. And I absolutely. It was scary to know that there were 12 people outside of the building who wanted nothing more than to see my head roll, no pun intended, right? They wanted to see that nasty, horrible drag queen in there that is doing amazing things in the community to end and go away. And it began this journey, and I'll tell you something, what was amazing is I got phone calls, Heather and many others called, and you started the Interfaith Coalition, started right about that time, and we took a break, we had to breathe, right? And our first event back was right here in this building where we had bingo, where we're standing room only. Some of y'all were here, right? So this congregation, this place has been a very interesting path of my journey. Y'all have been amazing to us, your family, your friends. But all that to say is we all have this choice in our life, right? Tommy had a choice. Tommy could have just been a secretary and probably have done an amazing job. But Tommy had a voice, even in her later years. And that gave me hope hearing that. Of like, I'm 45. And if you would have told me at 45, I would have to do television and radio interviews and lead a group of people in a small town in Central Florida and beyond, I don't know if I would have done it. I'm being honest. Like, it's a lot of pressure. But I knew that we needed to get a message that everyone is loved, accepted, and wanted for who they are. And we needed a safe space in a town that was centrally located amongst big cities. And because of amazing people like y'all, Pineapple Healthcare, and our community center. If you don't know, we have recovery. We have trans and non-binary support groups. We have a 55-plus queer support group. We have a teen group that we're running like 30 kids every month, and we're actually about to have to split it because it's getting so big. We do sober nights. We do trivia nights. The list goes on. We have this little center that at our grand opening we thought maybe 100 people would show up. Polk County always makes me crazy because you just never know what's going to happen. They stopped counting at over 350 people that had come through those doors. If you were there, you knew it was busy and amazing and hot. You know, this isn't about Jason. This isn't about Mama. This isn't even really about Rose Dynasty. This is about creating a safe space. And when I started the organization, and you look at our mission, I had to include religion. I had to. As someone who suffered and still struggles with trauma, with religious trauma, and I think a lot of us do, listening here present, right? It's sometimes hard to sit in a congregation. Even though you know that everybody in that place loves you and supports you, it's still a little uncomfortable. And I needed to make sure I added that part into our mission, because there are people that may be Jewish, that may be Muslim, that may be Catholic, that may be Christian, that may be UU, wherever they may be. They need a safe space too, even if it's outside of their congregation. And I know that we as queer people are represented everywhere. Everywhere. And I know that we needed to add that and have that in there. I want to encourage you, if there's anything that I could ever leave with anyone, is create a safe space, whether it's in your home, whether it's you walking down the street, whether it's your congregation, whether it's your work. Let people know that you love them, that you care about them. Caring and loving for people is not easy. It's not. Because in your own community, you'll get attacked, and you're outside of community, politically, religiously, neighborly, right? We know that we are going to fight those battles. But I promise you, no matter your age, no matter where you're from, no matter who you are, you can leave a legacy of love. You don't have to be a president. You don't have to be a pastor, a spiritual leader, a rock star. You can be. You don't have to be a drag queen. You can just be yourself and leave a legacy of love in one way or another. Think about those people in your life that have made a difference. Think about that person that smiled at you one day. The Petra who gave me a card that made me chuckle and about pee my pants earlier, of a drag queen shooting a bird that Mama would never do. But what you said on that card was impactful. And every single person that is here has had, and I've had encounter with, you have left a mark on my life. And I will never forget. And I am so honored and so appreciative of this. Thank you all so much. And I look forward to getting to know you all and seeing you around. And hopefully whoever gets this award next year, I believe that we'll do greater and bigger things than any person before. So thank you all so much.
Really, it's our honor to be able to give that to you and to be connected with you and have you as our friend. Dorothy, come on.
Dorothy wanted to say a few words about Jason. Jason was always there when we were doing the food pantry. He was there every week organizing, and so was Melissa. She was there every week, and it really warmed my heart working on this ITAF, and he really was cheerful and helpful, and I really am impressed with Jason.
Thank you, Dorothy. For those of you that don't know, we ran a mobile food pantry out of our social hall when we were closed down for COVID. We called it It Takes a Village, and of course, Jason was instrumental in that. It was great because it was a coalition, and so we had Rose Dynasty, we had Red Tent, we had Planned Parenthood, we had us, and we all got to know each other really well. And we've been doing great things together since. So that's why our mission statement is love plus connection equals transformation, because we're living that. My closing words were written by Kimberly Quinn Johnson, and they use a line from a poem that was written by June Jordan in 1978. She wrote a poem called A Poem for South African Women. And so Kimberly Quinn Johnson was inspired by one of the lines, and she wrote these words. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are not perfect, but we are perfectly fitted for this day. We are not without fault, but we can be honest to face our past as we chart a new future. We are the ones we have been waiting for. May we be bold and courageous to chart that new future. May we have faith in a future that is not known. We are the ones we have been waiting for. And now, our closing song is something a little bit fun, a little upbeat. Get up and dance and sing with us.